Hello everyone and welcome. Today we're going to be talking through some of the most recent balance changes that came in a patch late last night Eastern time. This footage is from just after the wipe. We're running Cleric, Ranger, Fighter in the crypts. So, less than 24 hours after kind of resetting the economy and making a complete pass of all the gear in the game, they have made some significant changes to the loot game, which are a little befuddling to me. So prior to the wipe, the +2, +3 attribute all meta was pretty terrible. It was giving the halves a considerable advantage. Ranger, calls for Rangers to be nerfed constantly, was really a result of the high rolls on plus damage you could get on every piece of gear, from rings and amulets to weapons to, boots, gauntlets, gloves, legs, chest. The best meta build for Ranger, which is my main, was simply plus weapon damage, every piece, doesn't matter if the gear quality was green or blue or purple. And it looks like we've taken a step back in that direction. So a bunch of changes came out in the patch last night. Most critically, they fixed a rollback issue where players would revert to the previous state when exiting a dungeon. And what that meant was if you took a red portal, there was an above zero chance that your run would just be reset, and you would be sent back to the lobby in exactly the state in which you entered the dungeon. This was very frustrating. This is what happens to us in this run. We do take a down portal, but then get sent back to the lobby after, waiting through a loading screen. And you'll need to cover your ears, kiddies, because there are some four-letter words used. It was a really good run. Picked up some serious upgrades very early in the patch. Was pretty excited about it. None of that happened. So, good on Ironmace for fixing this change. Everything else is kind of a walk back of balance changes that they've made previously, and significant changes to, the gear strategy. And I'm not sure if this level of indecision is being pushed by a level of complaint from the vocal minority in the crew, who think that Ironmace is coddling players, or that, what I hear when I hear these complaints is really, I like having a gear advantage, and I like relying on that gear advantage to roll lobbies, not skill advantage. But regardless, they've rolled back a lot of those significant changes. Better loot is now more difficult to acquire, and vendors will no longer carry gear of any epic quality whatsoever. So I guess there were some complaints that, that the scrubs, that the Timmies were gaining access to good gear. We got to put an end to this, and that the complaints were loud enough that Ironmace, within 24 hours, decided to roll this back. I don't understand this. 24 hours of data is not a sufficient amount of time to gather or analyze data necessary to make these kinds of decisions. So this seems like a pivot based on emotion and emotional feedback, and not really data-driven design, which is the first time I've seen Ironmace really make an error of this nature. There simply just was not enough time to analyze the impact of 24 hours of play to come to a determination about what was good, healthy, or working as intended, right? So they fixed some stuff with Warlocks that I don't care about. Warlock is a terrible class. It doesn't really work. It's a bad Barbarian in its best spec, with 0 spells and Glow of Corruption. None of their new tricks really change that equation. Briefly, lanterns and torches were giving additional movement speed. That is no longer the case. They now come in with 0 movement speed adjustment, which is still a change from before. They had a very slight movement speed reduction, but that has been removed. The radius on various abilities from bards to rangers to rogues have all been increased from 350 units to 450 units. Once again, not a big deal. But they did walk back some of the rogue nerfs from the end of the last kind of testing segment. Particularly, Rogue's ambush physical damage bonus was changed from 30% back to 50%, and weak point armor rating reduction has been changed from 25% to 30%. The duration has been changed from 3 seconds to 4 seconds. So it looks like we're going to take baby steps right back to the Rogue, Invisi-Rogue landmines. You open a door and immediately get gibbed by a Rogue. That playstyle looks like it's on its ascendancy. So we'll be seeing that again, unfortunately, for which there is no counterplay, and it is extremely lame. But apparently they want that in the game for reasons passing understanding. We're going to be moving back towards that. We have seasonal goodies are back. Jack-o'-lantern, the NPC who accepts candy corn that you find in small quantities in the dungeon. He'll now sell you the epic gear that we used to be able to buy off vendors. He will now sell that to you in exchange for candy corn. The prices for that seem all over the place, frankly. I don't really understand the calculus that they're using to determine price in candy corn. Like, I saw some two-handers that were available, two-handed weapons. They're available for 29 candy, and I saw some others that are available for 60 candy, and I don't understand why one would be almost 3 times the price of another.
Spellbook's on the ground next to me. I'm putting a fire.
But yeah, the big change is that, well, there's 2 really monstrous changes to gear. First of all, epics will no longer be available from the merchants in town. Okay. You can still get the, a wider assortment of gear and still get blue gear quality stuff. But the big change is that they've kind of completely walked back their changes with regard to the gear from the last patch. All of the stats that weren't rolling on gear, like plus true weapon damage, all of that is now available once again on every gear piece. So that will be, of course, the new meta for both Rogue and Ranger again. And they've added plus 2 all back into the game, even though we saw its very palpable toxic impact on the meta. They had to wipe, basically, to get it out of the way so that they could test for less than 24 hours, then to reintroduce the same thing that kind of corrupted the well of the last test. So I don't really understand this. It seems like emotional thinking and not data-driven design, which I'm fundamentally against. I just don't think they learned anything in 24 hours. I think they just reacted to negative community feedback in a very knee-jerk, non-deliberate way, honestly. And I think we're going to get back to the exact same point where, normal lobbies in the 15-plus bracket are going to be basically unplayable because we're going to have Giga Squads running through and just, ganking everybody. I mean, it's an almost foregone conclusion. So, here's my advice. If you're looking to gear up and you're looking to make money, the best way to do that is in the under 15 queues. Do that. Get the items that you're looking for, and then, move them wherever you want after that character hits 15, because I think leveling in the 15-plus bracket, trying to gear up in the 15-plus bracket, is going to be the same miserable experience it was at the end of the last playtest segment. We're just going to see more of exactly the same, right? Maybe Rogue's going to make a bounce back here. I still don't think that they're, optimal in a 3-man comp. I think that they're going to be, once again, incredibly lethal as a solo landmine. Now you're going to step off, they're going to get a kill. Maybe they'll escape with the loot, maybe they won't. Probably they won't in a 3-man scenario. But basically, opening doors is no longer safe. Watch out for the Rogue landmines. They're going to be back out there.
20.
Another change, which I guess is a positive, is that sub-bosses and Lion's Heads, Golden's Heads, Marvelous, and Royal Coffins will now always be guaranteed to grant a colored grade piece of loot, so you'll no longer have the experience of opening a Lion's Head chest and just getting like 3 gray or 3 white items, which could happen kind of infrequently before. Now they're always guaranteed to have at least a green in there, if I'm reading that correctly. And that's certainly been our experience in our limited testing, you know, after that patch went out. So yeah, those are kind of my thoughts. It's very confusing to me that a design team that has been so methodical and deliberate with their changes up to this point would, you know, after 24 hours, just do a knee-jerk walk back, essentially, of the balance changes that they intended. So if we look at the net result of both, you know, balance changes over a 48-hour period, they kind of lowered and normalized the weapon damage on all items across, you know, the base stats, and then just reintroduced all of the things that made the previous meta a problem. So I think it's very safe to say that the foreseeable future will look very much like the recent past, with regard to Rangers maintaining their dominance due to the plus weapon damage. It wasn't just the quick shot alone, it was the ability to stack ridiculous damage and basically two-tap, you know, pretty much any character in the game. I'm going to be able to do that again with a longbow, no problem, with, you know, plus 20 plus weapon damage in my kit. And quick shot, I get 2 shots, and that means, you know, any basically non-PDR warrior or barbarian will, you know, succumb to that. I don't know why people think that's fun. If you disagree with me, please, you know, comment. Let me know. I'm interested in the discourse. But yeah, very befuddling series of changes here, series of events. Like I said, it feels like emotional responses to an analytical problem. So who knows? Maybe we'll end up going around again on this carousel. This is the first kind of troubling balance change I think I've seen Ironmace make that I just don't understand it, and their explanation on Discord was barely there. But regardless, we tried to go down to hell here. We failed because of the bug, but that bug hasn't since been resolved, so good on that. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It helps me a ton.
Decent damage, survival.
And good luck to you in your runs to come.
It equals out a bit.